I'm going to be giving this game a lot of praise in the beginning before I get to the real meat of the video. It's a game I've had my eyes on for a while, all the way back when it was in development. Everspace is a roguelike story space shooter with persistent gameplay. It's a bit of a mouthful to describe. This game isn't bad, in fact it's rather good, but it suffers from a major flaw that kept echoing throughout my mind as I played. I'm going to be going over the good, the bad, and the flaw. Okay, starting off with the good. This game is absolutely beautiful. It really captures an otherworldly feel. Some things are a bit low quality, mostly the UI, but the environment is some of the best I've seen in a space game. Sorry, No Man's Sky. You tried though. Oh, they updated it. Ah, shit. The combat is one of the best I've seen, if not the best I've seen from a space game. First-person dogfights have always been a bit of a difficult thing to pull off. They really struck a good balance of keeping the combat challenging, while also not making me slam the wall with my mouse. Sorry, again, No Man's Sky. I don't know how they did it, but it works really well, even in VR. Oh god. Oh god. The voice acting is also pretty good. The main character will speak every now and then to himself, or his ship AI. It's a nice touch.
I don't need oxygen, you know. What?
The story writing can be a bit cookie cutter, but it kept me interested. The music is a bit It's not bad, just kinda bland. Most of the tracks just kinda blend into each other and aren't super memorable. But hey, at least there's more than one combat theme. I'm looking at you, Riskarain 2. Never mind if you send the update. Oh no, now this is outdated. This isn't everything the game does well. It has challenges and harder modes, pretty fleshed out lore, and a lot of neat things. But I think it's better to play it yourself than to explain them. Also, bonus points for including a colorblind mode. Just please, add more types. Thanks. The bad. This game sadly handles difficulty like a man with Parkinson's defusing a bomb. Poorly. Some enemies will just kill you in a couple hits, and others will pull out bullshit moves that you could have no clue about before dying to it. I get it's a roguelike, but having to restart because an enemy became a black hole or shot me from a wall is a bit bullshit. I know this probably sounds a bit strange after I just raved about the combat before, but that was more about how your combat felt and not how the enemies fight. I usually subscribe to the Miyamoto style of difficulty. What I mean by this is how he designs levels in games. Specifically, this can be seen in the first level of Mario Brothers. You've probably heard this before, but everything is introduced in that level in a way that the player can see or understand what's happening instead of having to die first. Or if death does occur, they can quickly jump right back in knowing what happened. For example, the mushrooms move towards the player after falling. The only clear direction is right, and the first enemy is so close to the beginning that the player can figure out how to defeat it. This must sound really strange doing a comparison of a space game and a Mario game's combat. Well, it's about to get weirder, because I'm bringing Dark Souls into the equation. No, I'm not saying this game is the Dark Souls of space games, or that it makes you really feel like a spaceship. It's actually sort of the opposite. Now, I've only ever played through the third game, and a bit of the first, but I really enjoyed it. But as difficult as Dark Souls is, most enemies telegraph their attack. There's a clear indication of what they are going to do. So even if you've never encountered the enemy before, you can at least prepare for where and how they might attack. Now, I'm not the best person to explain Dark Souls combat, so instead, I'm going to have Spectakoo do it for me.
So I chugged so much Chex Mix before recording this that I split my tongue open, and I didn't know that was an option while eating Chex Mix, so oopsies doopsies. Dark Souls is the hard game. It's very difficult, very spooky, very scary, but there's a reason Dark Souls is notorious for its difficulty but still considered balanced. That's because it's well designed. In Everspace, you can die from an instant death missile from an Elliptilian star gremlin you couldn't possibly have seen coming and then have to start over completely. It's a roguelike, so to some degree that's to be expected. Roguelikes leave core content up to RNG and are required by law to be unfair, and that's why it's such an alienating genre. But Everspace is not built to cater to its permadeath nature. In the hit game Dark Souls, this absurd instant deaths absolutely happen, and they're irksome, but you respawn nearby and you understand what happened because it visually communicates its murder weapons very transparently, which is admirable. Your trek back to whatever did you in is never unreasonably far, and the enemies and their actions are not left to the whims of random generation, giving you plenty of tries to trial and error your problems away and or to death. Everspace handles challenges similarly, except they're always randomized, and they don't communicate why you failed, so you can't work out a counter, and they reset your progress progress completely in a game that doesn't enable you to learn from your follies. So the takeaway is that Dark Souls really should have been a roguelike. Thank you everybody for coming. It's been me, Spectakoo, from the hit video Hollow Knight Act 1. I think that's all I'm known for. Oh, and Hollow Knight Act 2. Don't forget Hollow Knight Act 2. Ooh, that was a good one, my man. Ooh, another favorite, Hollow Knight Act 4. I mean, I think 3 is actually more popular. Wait, no, 3 and 2 are tied. This is the Spectakoo, the man slain by mosquitoes. It's probably one of my weakest titles. Like, most of my titles are all, like, hell-bent on sounding way too, like, I don't know, I don't even know what to describe them as. They're very alien, they're weird, but they like sound impactful even though they're really not. But then there's just the man slain by a mosquito. Anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Before I get into the flaw, I only have one last gripe with the game, the health system. The health system in this game makes my soul hurt. Like most space games, you have a ship hull health and a shield health. The hull needs to be repaired by you, and the shield will heal itself over time. Standard stuff. Your ship also has different parts that can break and make certain actions difficult or impossible. So far, it sounds good, right? Sounds like it will add some depth, right? Wrong. Somebody made the asinine decision to make healing the hull, the individual parts, require nanobots. Note, the individual parts require resources and nanobots. So what's wrong with nanobots? Well, they are a completely random drop from enemies in crates. I've had runs where I barely find any, and others where I find so many I hit the max amount. Yes, there's a max amount of nanobots that you can carry, though this can be upgraded. And no, you can't craft nanobots, which seems odd to me with all the resources in the game. You'd think that you could craft them. I assumed so in the beginning, but just thought that I couldn't find it because of the UI. On a side note, seriously, this UI needs some work. It feels incomplete in the menus, and is a mess in the game. It almost feels like a stock Unity asset, or like they just plopped it in from the Unreal Engine. I don't know, looks odd. I looked around on the forums and people recommended killing all the enemies to get nanobots. Problem is, I had already been doing that because I play Everspace like a genocidal asshole who will not stop until the universe is clean of the scum that rots in the nest. I don't think I'd even be upset with the system if only the hull required nanobots. The flaw. Now, I love roguelikes. This game is a roguelike, and a story game, and an infinite run game, and grindy. This game is confused on what it wants to be, and because of this, it doesn't really do anything great. It does everything fine, but flawed. The persistence aspect of this game means you can upgrade the ship after every death, slowly improving it. As you upgrade the ship, the upgrades become more and more expensive, to the point that fully upgrading a tier is very difficult. The idea behind it being that you'll die many times in order to upgrade the ship. The problem is that you have to do this so many times that going over and over starts to get grindy. It feels like one of those old Flash games you'd play in school when the teacher wasn't watching. You also have to deal with the story as you play. There's no infinite run until after you defeat the story. This means as you play, you have to deal with some story-related things, like boss fights, cutscenes, and so on. It could really stop the flow of a run sometimes, especially since most are at random times, and only happen once. If you die in a boss fight, you won't fight it again, which means you potentially lose the thrill of actually fighting if you died immediately the first time. The whole stopping and starting of the story really bothered me because I genuinely wanted to see it out, but stopping and starting totally killed the flow. It's weird because other roguelikes have a story to them, but it feels like most have a short or simple story that takes a back seat, or it has some sort of distance to create checkpoints or save spots. If it has a long story, Everspace is one of those games that takes quite a while to complete, and because of this, its roguelike qualities don't help it. They hinder it. It feels like the game should have had the story mode be separate and have a checkpoint at the last level or start of the zone. Sort of how Rainworld works. Rainworld, now that's a game I need to play more. At Risk of Rain game too. They both got rain in the name, so they're probably related. Everspace is a confused game, and I find it hard to really decide if it's good or bad. So make of it as you will. In a way, it's beautifully flawed. Hey there. I'm going to be streaming over on Twitch more, so keep an eye open for that. You can find the link down in the description.